It's 2 a.m. Eddie Van Halen is drunk, desperate, and watching MTV. Suddenly, he sees a guy getting a speeding ticket. That guy, Sammy Hagar. Eddie grabs the phone. That late-night call set in motion one of the most unlikely success stories in rock history. This is the real story of how Van Halen saved their career and changed rock music forever. The fall of a giant. In 1985, Van Halen stood at the edge of a cliff, staring into the abyss. Just a year earlier, they were on top of the world. Their album, 1984, had exploded onto the charts, powered by the mega-hit Jump. Stadiums were packed, screaming fans worshipped them, and it seemed like nothing could stop the unstoppable Van Halen machine. But behind the scenes, trouble was brewing. The band's larger-than-life frontman, David Lee Roth, was clashing with his bandmates. His wild antics and ego were pushing them to the breaking point. Then, on April 1st, 1985, the unthinkable happened. Van Halen announced that Roth was out of the band. The news hit like a sledgehammer. Fans were shocked and devastated. The media went into a frenzy, speculating about what had gone wrong. Shows were canceled, leaving thousands of ticket holders in the lurch. It was a PR nightmare, and Van Halen was right in the eye of the storm. With their backs against the wall, Van Halen knew they had to act fast. They launched a frantic search for a new singer, auditioning anyone who might have what it took to fill Roth's enormous shoes. They considered Jimmy Barnes from Cold Chisel and Eric Martin, who would later front Mr. Big. They even toyed with the idea of bringing in a female vocalist, Patti Smith, but none of them felt right. The pressure was mounting, and time was running out. Van Halen needed a miracle to save their career. As they scrambled to find their musical savior, little did they know that an unlikely hero was about to emerge from the most unexpected place. The Red Rocker rises. Late one night, as the clock struck 2 a.m., a bleary-eyed Eddie Van Halen found himself channel surfing. The guitar virtuoso was drowning his sorrows, haunted by the band's uncertain future. Suddenly, there on the TV screen was Sammy Hagar, getting pulled over for speeding in his music video. Something clicked in Eddie's alcohol-addled brain. Without a second thought, he reached for the phone. The call that followed would go down in rock history. Hagar, recounting the moment years later, said, "I told my wife, they're gonna call me." And she goes, "God, I hope not. She hated that band." But Hagar knew better. "I said, who else are they gonna call? There's only a few guys that can sing at that caliber." The deal came together quickly. Manager Ed Loeffler structured an unprecedented arrangement. Hagar would maintain his solo career while becoming an equal partner in Van Halen. The contract gave him full writing credits and an equal 25% share of all band revenues. This was revolutionary for a replacement singer, showing how desperate Van Halen was for the right voice. On July 4th, 1985, Sammy officially visited 5150 Studio for their first meeting. The chemistry was immediate. During an impromptu 3-hour jam session, they wrote Good Enough, which would later appear on 5150. Alex and Michael were instantly impressed with Sammy's range and professionalism. By August 1985, contracts were signed, making Sammy an official member. His confidence was clear, but joining Van Halen was far from a done deal. At first, Hagar was reluctant to even entertain the idea. Fresh off a grueling tour, he told Eddie, "I just got home from a tour. I ain't gonna do nothing tomorrow." The prospect of stepping into the shoes of David Lee Roth, one of rock's most flamboyant frontmen, was daunting. Hagar had his own style, his own success. Did he really want to risk it all by joining a band in turmoil? The offer hung in the air like a power cord, full of potential but fraught with risk. For Van Halen, Hagar represented a lifeline, a chance to reinvent themselves and silence the critics. But for Sammy, it meant leaving behind the solo career he'd worked so hard to build. In the end, it was the music that sealed the deal. When Hagar finally agreed to jam with the band, the chemistry was undeniable. He recalled, "As soon as we started jamming, everything changed. I started singing to it, making up words. They all got excited. Oh man, this guy can sing." In that moment, the new Van Halen was born. The band was about to enter uncharted territory, and not everyone was happy about it. One particularly vocal fan summed up the sentiment of many. "Van Halen without David Lee Roth is like a cake without frosting. It might still taste okay, but it's missing the best part." The media fanned the flames of discontent, with some outlets predicting the band's imminent downfall. One critic boldly claimed that Van Halen would struggle to maintain their previous level of success without Roth's larger-than-life presence. But amidst the storm of criticism, a defiant spirit was taking hold within the band. They knew they were stepping into uncharted territory, but they also believed in the music they were creating. Sammy Hagar, far from being cowed by the controversy, seemed to thrive on it. "I like the controversy," he later admitted. "If you want to get down to it, I thrived on it." One thing was certain. The world was watching, waiting to see if Van Halen could pull off the impossible. Reinvention in the studio. While fans raged and critics sharpened their knives, Van Halen made a daring move. They ditched their trademark sound and embraced the unknown. Inside Eddie's messy home studio, a new Van Halen was taking shape. But at what cost? The new Van Halen sound marked a dramatic shift. While Roth-era Van Halen featured party anthems and flashy guitar work, Sammy brought a more melodic, sophisticated approach. Eddie incorporated keyboards more prominently, while Sammy's powerful vocals allowed for bigger choruses and emotional ballads. Alex and Michael expanded their rhythmic foundations to support the more complex arrangements. The band retreated to Eddie's 5150 studio, a chaotic sanctuary littered with empty beer bottles and cigarette butts. In this cluttered cave, Van Halen began the painful process of reinventing themselves. The band's new writing process was democratic. Each member contributed equally, unlike the Eddie-dominated past. They deliberately moved away from party anthems toward more complex arrangements. Eddie's guitar work became more textured, while Hagar's lyrics explored personal themes rather than Roth's showman style. This mature direction was calculated to prove Van Halen was more than just a party band. Producer Ted Templeman noted, "They were determined to show they could make serious music." The first writing sessions were a clash of styles. Hagar's bluesy rock vocals collided with Eddie's guitar wizardry. The band's past hung over them like a dark cloud, threatening to suffocate their new ideas. But in the midst of this creative storm, something unexpected happened. During an impromptu jam, Hagar started belting out lyrics to a mid-tempo riff. The room crackled with energy. As the days turned into weeks, a new, more mature sound emerged from the chaos. Eddie's songwriting evolved, moving beyond flashy guitar solos to explore deeper emotional territory. The haunting melody of "Love Walks In" left Hagar with goosebumps. But the path to reinvention was far from smooth. Tensions flared between producer Mick Jones and engineer Don Landy. One day, Landy locked himself in the studio, threatening to destroy their work. The standoff lasted nearly 24 hours, with the band's future hanging by a thread. The pressure to deliver weighed heavily on their shoulders. Finally, after months of grueling work, 5150 was complete. The band listened to the final mix with nervous excitement. They had poured their souls into these songs, pushing themselves to uncharted musical territory. The die was cast. Now Van Halen faced the ultimate test: Judgment Day. Career suicide or stroke of genius? The release of 5150 on March 24, 1986 would answer that burning question. Van Halen had rolled the dice on a new sound and a new singer. Van Halen's future hung in the balance. Early reviews trickled in, and they weren't pretty. Eddie Van Halen later admitted, "Those were some of the darkest days of my life. I thought we'd made a huge mistake. But then, something unexpected happened." Why Can't This Be Love, the album's lead single, started gaining traction on the airwaves. People who heard it were surprised. It wasn't the Van Halen they knew, but it was catchy. Word of mouth spread. Slowly but surely, curiosity overcame skepticism. As the dust settled, the numbers came in. Against all odds, 5150 had debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts. Within its first month, the album sold over 3 million copies. Van Halen had silenced their critics in the most dramatic way possible. 5150 was certified multi-platinum by July, cementing its place as one of the band's most successful albums. Sammy Hagar's gamble had paid off spectacularly. The price of success. Van Halen's gamble with Sammy Hagar paid off big time, but success came at a hefty price. The band churned out hit after hit, with 9 #1 songs on the rock charts. Sammy Hagar later reflected on this bittersweet era. It was a mind-blower. To have the success that we had with that record, a second run for the band, it was kind of a miracle in rock and roll. But he also admitted, "The bad shit doesn't carry with me." The Van Hagar years proved that even when you're on top, the struggle never really ends. Van Halen's resilience in the face of doubt and criticism left a lasting mark on rock history. They showed that a band could reinvent itself and still soar, even as personal battles raged behind the curtain. Their legacy endures, a testament to both their musical genius and the high cost of stardom.